This episode is sponsored by two amazing companies. First, we have 99 Designs. Listen, if you're looking for a new business card, a new logo, a new website, something for marketing, whatever. If you need graphic arts, if you need something created, if you need something taken from your mind, your thought process, and created on paper, in print, on the internet, these guys know how to get it done for you, and they give you a ton of options to choose from. Guys, super endorsed by Tim Ferriss. 99 Designs, check them out. Go to davidihill.com. davidihill.com, click on the affiliates link, and you'll see 99 Designs, and just click the link and check them out. The other one is Land Voice. If 2017, part of your goal is prospecting, then you need to check these guys out. They have access to the For Sale by Owner for you, expired listings, circle prospecting, giving you all the phone numbers you need to make those prospecting calls. So check out Land Voice. Same thing. Go to my site, davidihill.com, affiliates, and you just click on the Land Voice link, and you can see all the specials they've got. They've got like $30 a month specials going on right now. You can try their service out. No contract, $30. If you love it, you keep going. If you don't, you stop. You just can't beat it. So, guys, check out our sponsors, all right, and enjoy.
Get ready for one more sale, inspiring you with ideas through powerful and engaging interviews with top performers of their field. Now, join us as we discuss techniques and strategies of the coolest and most successful people on the planet.
Hey Masters, I just want to start off by wishing you a phenomenal 2017 Happy New Year, my friends. Thank you, by the way, for your support. Thank you for sticking with me. Our first episode was January 2016, guys, almost a year to the day, and we've grown so much, and we were able to do that because of you. So again, I want to say thank you. You know, my last episode with Ben Pickthorn, we got almost 300 downloads first day. Now, I know in the podcast world, you know, that's not the hugest deal yet, and I'll tell you, we're growing. I remember, 10 months ago, I got 300 downloads for the whole month, and I was just super stoked with that. So I just want to say thank you. I know we've got a ways to go. We're on that path, and that's what it's all about. It's the path to mastery, my friends. One download at a time, one share at a time. So again, I just want to say I appreciate you. And the other thing I want to talk about this episode, I was not going to release this episode. I just go deep into some of my frustrations, some of my challenges. I know Tony Robbins says we don't want to call them frustrations, call them fascinations, and I know that's great. And 9 out of 10 times, that makes a lot of sense to me. But I'll be honest, sometimes it's frustrating. I'm going to talk to you guys about the things that a lot of team owners don't talk about. Having to rebuild a team every 2 years, some of the challenges with the team. If you own a team or you're building a team, you need to listen to this episode. I mean, this is as real as I could get. My friend Elise Enriquez, a phenomenal business coach, mentor, she's amazing. She interviews me and we just discuss, real life issues, challenges, things that happen, man, with these teams. So listen, I just wanted to share this because, again, it's the stuff that a lot of us don't talk about, but I guarantee you're going to find it beneficial. And I'm just being as real as I can. I don't know what else to say. This is what I experienced, and if you get something from it, awesome. If you know anybody else that could use it, share it with them, all right? So I just want to thank you on that. Listen, Happy New Year, my friends. Happy New Year. Man, looking forward to prosperity, abundance. 2017 is going to be amazing for all of us. So again, I just want to thank you one last time, and I ask you to enjoy the podcast, share it with someone else, and you know what? You rock, and continue on your path to mastery. Hey friends, masters, it's David Hill here with a special, different episode for you now. I'm going to turn the things around a little bit, and my good friend Elise Enriquez, who you've probably heard from before, she's an amazing business coach. We did an episode months ago on the why. She is actually going to interview me now, and we're going to talk about some of the I don't even know what we're going to talk about, but I'm looking forward to the interview. So, hey, what's up, Elise? How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Good. You're in charge. You're in charge today.
I'm in charge. Oh, gosh, I wasn't expecting that. There's nothing like, having everything flipped on its ear to make this all a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Would it help for me to explain who I am real quick?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, you're in charge. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, there you go. So I'm a coach and consultant. I work with folks around uncovering their purpose and establishing leadership around their purpose, which means really clarifying their values, their vision for what they want out of their life, and being able to convey that to their team so that they can get everybody on board to go after the same things together. So it's really about building alignment across people who want to be all in and get after something together. So I do that at that high level of purpose, vision, and values. And then sometimes when people can't get there, I'm helping them at the ground level of figuring out how to get systems in place to get more of what matters done. So sometimes that's scorecards for people in sales, right? Helping them know what they should be doing on a regular basis and actually doing it. And other times it's getting systems in place to keep the big projects they want to get under control and on track. So those are the things that I do and the people that I work with. And Dave and I have been working together and going through a lot for you as you've been exploring what leadership means and what it's like to build and have a team that, that has alignment. So why don't you give us a little background on what it's been like to build a team? When did you start building a team and where are you at now?
My first attempt at building a team was 2006. I had built a team completely the wrong way. I didn't follow any of the models. I hired a buyer's agent first, which we know is a huge no-no because then I become their assistant. It just failed. I failed forward. I would say I started getting productive teams, and I've had different teams in and out. People would come, they'd quit, they'd leave. I'd hire anybody. I'd say I got purposeful on building a team in probably 2013 is when I really became purposeful and started following some models. I wish I started that sooner. But then, my story. It's been a challenge, and I think that's what brought on this conversation. Is I think some of my I don't know. I'm going to call them frustrations. Tony Robbins says call them fascinations. You can call them whatever you want, but sometimes it just doesn't feel good in the moment, and that's the reality. We built in 2014. We had a team, did just over 100 units. We were like number one in our MLS, got an award. For everything. And it was like great. And then, 2 months later, I came back from an event one day and pretty much my two top people said, hey, we're leaving. And then a couple other people went with them and, it just all fell apart. And then I was in a tough place and then I decided, okay, I'm going to rebuild. And I rebuilt it. And, here I am, 2016. We didn't have our greatest year. We had a decent year. And now again, there's no team. It's like, I shouldn't say that. I mean, my wife's amazing. So right now I went from having 7 people to my wife, myself, and a transaction coordinator. So that's where I am right now. Mm-hmm. After doing, about 18 million in volume last year with a team that, reached about half of its goal.
And so tell me more about what it's been like what your major frustrations. You said, Tony Robbins says fascinations, but, in the moment they feel like frustrations. And, I think the best thing we can do is actually feel whatever the feelings are, whether it's positive or quote unquote negative, feel what it really feels like to be experiencing whatever it is you're experiencing. And so what have the frustrations been? Let's go ahead and call them that.
I heard a good, I don't know if it was a proverb or somebody made a metaphor for some like a biblical story, whatever you would call that, where the guy just rolled this huge rock up a hill, and then it was like a punishment from the gods. And then when he almost got to the top of the hill, it would always roll back down, and he'd just have to start at the bottom. And it was just like this punishment. And that's pretty extreme, right? But that's what I thought about when I heard that was like the team, you build it, you get to a certain place, and then it falls apart. And then you got to go rebuild it again. And I don't think everybody's going through that, but there are a lot of people that are going through that. And I thought that was why, when you and I talked and thought this would be a productive interview, because there's a lot of people that can relate to that. And there's a lot of people that go through that, but they just don't talk about it.
Right. Yeah. You're mostly hearing from the people who've already figured it out. Right. And they can tell you the hard story, but they also can tell you about how great things are right now. And so it can be a little bit misleading, that everybody gets to that point.
Yeah, and I think, the fact too that there are people that do it and do it at a high level. So, it can be done. Mm-hmm. So we don't, I can't ever forget that, because in the midst of all the frustration, if you want to call it that, or whatever it is, things aren't working, you can start to think, I know I've been there, like, you know what, it just doesn't work. It's just not going to work, like this does, and I got to really pay attention to that and be careful of that.
Yeah, so I want to bring you back to, though, specifically, you gave the example of rolling the rock up the hill, and I can't, it is, comes from Greek mythology, I think, and so I'm sure one of the listeners is probably yelling at us right now, telling us what it is. I want to say it's Icarus, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not sure.
Yes, exactly, Icarus, you're absolutely right. You nailed it, thank you.
You're welcome. So that's a general analogy to talk about, but what are some of the specific frustrations you've had when it's come to building teams?
Frustrations as far as like the logistics of actually building the team, or finding once you have talent, when you have people on the team, there's a lot. There's training, there's time that goes into it, organization, there's expectations that have to be set, there's goals. I think one of my frustrations or challenges is, and I realized this, and I think I talked to you about this, I don't know, I just was talking to my friend Jarek Robbins, and, maybe not, setting the expectations high enough so that when I do hire somebody, I'd almost oversell, oh yeah, come on in, you'll make $100,000 your first year, you can have weekends off, and you'll be home at 5:00. But that's not reality. Maybe for me, that's reality because I put in 13 hours of grinding. 13 years, hours, I wish hours of grinding. But, really going forward, I think that's one of the things I'm going to do different is I'm going to let people know, you know what, this is friggin' hard.
Yeah.
You want to be successful, you want to make $100,000 next year, then you're going to do like I did my first year in the business, and you're going to work 75 hours a week, and you're going to work weekends, and you're going to, if you're prepared to do that, phenomenal. I'm going to help you do that. If you're not, then we're not going to do that. You know what I mean? You're not going to make $100,000. And I think that's the biggest thing I learned from 2016.
Yeah, it's to really set clear, realistic expectations.
Yeah, I don't know if I even answered your question, but that's...
It's okay, because the questions are just a starting point, right? And so the question was about what your frustrations, and what you got to was just how frustrating and how hard it's been for you to take the time, get the organization in place, and set the expectations. And that's how you got there. And that setting expectations piece is really important. I was just talking to a leader up in the North Seattle area yesterday where, she's been building a team and kind of following the model. And for those of you listening, if you're not familiar with Keller Williams or Millionaire Real Estate Agent, MREA, that's the model that we're talking about. It's a sound model. It's something that's worked. It's something that's proven. It's been, test driven, right? And so she's kind of following the model, but people aren't going to do it until they believe it. So I can tell her about the model all I want. She can hear about it from Gary Keller all she wants. She can read it all she wants, but it's going to be trying it yourself and seeing how it goes, right? But no matter what you do, whether you're in line with the model or not, when you bring somebody on, it's only fair that you tell them how to play the game. Like, these are the rules of the game on my team. This is how.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to jump in 1 second too, because I want to say the model works clearly, and Gary will tell you this. Being in his mastermind for years, the model is the starting basis. Though It's like the same model that works in San Diego doesn't necessarily work in Boston, and it doesn't work in Alaska, and it's not going to work in Mexico. You know what I mean? So it's like here's the blueprint. Take it, and then you got to sometimes modify it, right? I think what we tend to do, or at least what I tend to do, is just create my own model.
Right. Yep, exactly. So it's like start with something that's proven, and then make adjustments based on your market or your target client. I mean, I have a really fascinating client in the Kirkland area so that's East Seattle, who, really who she works with is not just like high-end luxury, but also really unique properties where it's her job to bring out to illustrate the highest and best use of that property. And sometimes that's going to be, $1 million home. Other times it's going to be a really interesting project with green cottages, right? Cottages that are in line with green building standards. I mean, you just don't know what it's going to be. And so the model doesn't necessarily out of the box support that. So she had to start with the model, the MREA model, and then figure out how to tweak it for what it is that she is most passionate about doing.
Yeah, like fundamentally, I mean, you always hire an administrative assistant first. I mean, you hire that's without saying. And there's other things that you're not going to deviate away from, but you do make some changes depending on, your price point. Even with teams, some teams, I think there's like this standard, like, okay, the showing agent is a 25% split. Well, in some areas that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So there's all these different variations.
Well, and the key is to try something. And that's constantly what I'm talking about with my clients. And those are my favorite clients, are the ones who try something. And that's why I've enjoyed working with you, is that you'll try something. You'll try it and find out and learn, and know that the quicker we can fail, the faster we're going to learn. And it's not fun all the time, but so long as we learn, I don't know that we can really call it failure. And that's going to be the most important thing. So the model is a great starting point for you to just keep failing forward until you find your way into creating your kind of team.
Absolutely.
And
I agree.
That was the thing with this particular agent in the Kirkland area, is that, for her, what's really important in her model is having really strong marketing people. She happens to come from a marketing background. It's what she's passionate about, and it's kind of what she's known for in our area now. She's just a brilliant marketer. And so for her, part of her model is having a couple of solid people on her marketing team. And that's not going to be everybody's model. It's not going to be everybody's model to have a graphic designer on staff.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be different depending on where you are. And I think, the expectations are different. The people, people in Boston are I spent time calling. I used to do a call center back in 2012. And, those certain areas of the country I would call, call on people, and they were just friendlier, like this, the way they answered the phone, the way they communicated with you, where, in this area, people are a lot more, it's I don't know, it seems like a lot of people are in a rush. They're shorter. They just want to get off the phone quicker. So I think probably getting off topic here, but I think that too, and just the people that you're dealing with, you know what I mean? The expectations may be different. And I think with working with you, one of the greatest takeaways I took from 2016 was we created, my vision for the team is transforming the real estate experience through communication. Mm-hmm. And I get that. And that's me. And that's the essence of, everything I do still. Mm-hmm. But now you got to go find, and you told me up front, you got to find the other people that really resonate with that. And don't not just resonate with it like sitting at the table with you and saying, oh, yeah, that sounds great, we're going to do that. But no, it's. I think we had this conversation about finding people that care as much about your team as you do. Like your friend Margaret is a perfect example of that. When I had a conversation with her, like she treats her team that she's the executive assistant on like it's her business.
Yeah, she truly does. She has full ownership, and I don't mean literal ownership, right? But she has a sense of ownership on that team, that what she contributes matters. And that's what it gets down to, is having people on your team know that what they're doing matters. And when they feel like they have that buy-in from their leader, they want to give their blood, sweat, and tears, right? And Simon Sinek talks about that. When you are working with people who believe what you believe, they will work for you and for blood, sweat, and tears. And when you don't have that, they're just wanting to know, what's the split? What's the percentage? What's my cut? Yeah. What's my share?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's not what we want. We want, I want to get up and go to work every day with people that I love working with, people that I'm excited about, and people who get results. And so it's figuring out, who are those kinds of people? What are the traits? What are the values that they believe in? And more importantly, what do those values look like in action? What does it look like to transform real estate through communication? What kind of communication? What does that look like on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? What does that look like when they're doing their lead gen calls versus when their transaction coordinator is, giving them an update? What does that really look like? And when you're interviewing them, what proof can they give you that they've done that this is what they live and breathe and always have? Because they might not have had positions that allowed for that, but that does to be, to provide stellar communication, but they always did anyway. People's history is really important. Having that track record of values is really important. I look back at the jobs I've had. When I was at Microsoft, I was coaching. I was doing exactly what I do now, but and it wasn't part of my job description, but it's what made me really good there. I wasn't being paid for doing what I was really doing, which was sitting back, listening to people, hearing the patterns, connecting the dots, and figuring out how to move things forward. That's what coaching is. is like helping people find their own solutions. And I was doing that all the time in all of my past jobs. I did it as a real estate agent. I did it as a coach, I did it at Microsoft. I've done it in all my past jobs. And now I'm finally doing it as my career. Well, if you want people who believe in communication and believe in transforming the real estate experience through communication, it's a matter of looking at their past and seeing how have they done that in their past and how will they contribute to your team now.
Yeah, or even, going as far as like, what if they don't have that as their past? What if how do you know if they're really buying into, or if that's something that, if that's part of them, I guess, is it in their DNA to be service-based? Like one of the biggest shifts for me was literally something as simple as, calling my sellers every single Monday with an update, right, regardless if I have anything to say or not, if it's bad news, it's just about calling and saying, hey, I haven't forgot about you. Here's what's going on. That little thing makes such a difference. Mm-hmm. But how do you know if somebody else has that mindset, that service-based mindset?
Well, in that example, it's going to be in little ways that you'll see it pop up, right? Like, say they were supposed to get you something as part of the interview process, or it's not recruit select anymore.
Career visioning.
Career visioning, thank you. As part of the career visioning process, are there things that they were supposed to get you by certain times, and if they can't meet that deadline, that they are communicating ahead of time that they can't, right? That's good communication. That's also tapping into something that you care about, which is doing what you say you're going to do. And that when you can't, we communicate about that as quickly as possible. And so it's looking for, and that's why it's important that as you identify your vision and your values and your purpose, that you figure out, but what does that look like in real life? And have as many examples of that in your back pocket so that you can spot it when it shows up in somebody else. Because it might show up in somebody like a waiter or a waitress, right? You're sitting there and they come by and say, hey, I know your food's not up yet. I just checked back with the kitchen. It's going to be up in a couple of minutes. Do you need anything else? Right? Where like they're proactively recognizing, oh gosh, this isn't the timing we thought it was going to be. I need to update my customer. That's good communication.
Yeah.
You are listening to One More Sale.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit on you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
One of the books I'm reading right now that's really is The Dip. Mm-hmm. Seth Godin's Dip. And it's really helped me a lot to, realize the difference between quitting something because you're frustrated, or quitting something because you can't be the best in the world at it, or because you're in the dip, which is challenging. It's kind of like he uses the metaphor of running the marathon where, mile 20, you're in a pretty bad dip. But by mile 25, now you can see the finish line's coming. So it's easy to keep moving forward. So I think that was really powerful to read that book. And the reason I'm sharing that is because there's a lot of people I know. One of the things, and I feel selfish to say this, but when I shared with one of my good friends, a team leader, what was going on, and she's like, man, that happens to this guy every 3 years. And I'm like, really? And I mean, if I said the person's name, we'd all know who he is. They do a ton of business, not that I felt like, oh, I'm glad that happened, but it was like, oh, wow, I'm not alone. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's really common, from what I understand, that, so is it leadership? I think that's part of it, right? Setting expectations, the vision, all that stuff. It's a combination, Elise, of all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the mix of, with something like The Dip, it makes me think of, you got me, listening to James Altucher now, right? His podcast, I listen to it all the time. And I don't know if you got to listen. Did you get to listen to the Stephen Pressfield interview?
I haven't listened to that one yet.
I think that'll be beneficial for you. I think it'll tie into some of the dip stuff. But, he talks about the hero's saga and the hero's journey. And Altucher did a great job of connecting that concept, that 4-stage concept, to Pressfield's other book called Turning Pro. And when it comes to Turning Pro, it's about just doing it anyway. Like doing the activities you need to do, showing up every single day. But it requires you to be on the right track, and it requires you to be doing something every day towards something that you care about, And so I think that's the same thing with the dip, is like, if you kind of can't help but keep doing it because you care about it so much, that's when you start powering through. And when you look at somebody who's rebuilding a team, every 3 years, like you're saying, where they kind of blow it up, it's like, they can't help but keep trying to build this thing bigger and better. They just can't stop themselves, right? And so they just keep trying and they keep improving and they keep getting better. And then every few years they might blow it up again just to see, because that's how they do it. If it works for them and it's not hurting other people, fine, do it.
Yeah. And you really have to love it. To do that, you have to love it. And I think with my speaking and teaching and having my podcast and all this other great stuff, sometimes I'd rather focus on that, if that makes sense. So it's like, I want to get this team to a place where I love real estate. I've been so gifted by real estate, and that's why I'm even able to have a podcast or do this other stuff. And I get in this place where, oh my God, now I got to go back and deal with it again, where I think what you just said is like even if your team falls apart every 3 years, like who cares if you love real estate? And that's just part of the MO, right? You're working, you just get more people, you rebuild it, you just keep moving forward, right?
Right.
But if your main goal is not to do that, that's, I think, when you have some more challenges with it. So you got to make a decision, like in the dip. Can I really be the best person in the world at this? And not in the whole world, you know what I'm talking about, but in my world, like,
right.
And really looking at that, I think the answer is yes. I get, the clients that we work with love us. They, you know what I mean? They say good things about us, and just really looking at that in the testimonials we get, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that actually inspired me to go back and say, for me now, it's just finding that right person. I'm ready to give somebody else a massive opportunity. Find that right person that can come in and treat it like they own it and take it to the next level,
Yeah, it's everybody kind of knowing their part, knowing what you're truly gifted at and what's your role that you can contribute. The tricky thing is, as real estate experts, real estate professionals building teams, you guys start out as the technician, right? You start out as the salesperson and the transaction coordinator if you're not paying for one right away, and the assistant. You're starting out, you've done all the roles, but as you grow, those roles get more and more specialized, and they better get better than you could have done them on your own. And so at some point you have to be able to step into that leadership role and want to be the best that you can be at leadership, and to become a pro at leadership and learn about leadership. Otherwise, it's always going to be hard to have the team.
Yeah. And I think, I can relate to this because nobody ever taught me leadership. When I got my real estate license, I was taught to call FSBOs and expireds.
Yeah.
I did that for a lot of years. I never took classes on leadership. I never really talked much. I learned how to prospect, make money. I wrote a book on the sales playbook. Mm-hmm. I'm good at sales. I'm good at connecting. I'm good at prospecting, making connections, closing deals. Leadership, that's just another whole set of skills. It's just a completely different skill set. And it's connection, it's listening, it's empathy. There's so much to it. You can tell us more about what it is than I can, obviously, because that's an area I need to work on. And always, I'm not ashamed to say that. 2016 was my commitment was leadership. I said, you know what, I'm going to focus on being a better leader this year. And I think I did become a better leader. I wouldn't say I didn't. I just think that, I've got to be even better. That's the key. I've got to be even better.
Well, here's the thing. I think everybody needs to be better at hiring and then leading, right? And so what that takes is clarity. When I talk about the three things I'm constantly talking about are clarity, communication, and consistency. Clarity is about getting clear on, again, the purpose, the vision, and the values. What do you really believe in, so that you can clearly communicate that to everybody around you, so that you're only attracting people, or primarily attracting people, who believe what you believe, who are on board, who buy in like Margaret Smith does on the Picket Street team, right? So if you guys haven't listened to Margaret's interview, listen to it and you'll hear what ownership of a position really sounds like. But, when you can start with clarity and hire with clarity, that's what makes the difference. That's the huge difference. And then work on the communication skills. That's the other main thing I'm constantly doing with clients, is helping them have the conversations they need to have. I can't tell you how many times in a client session I say, or how many times a day really I say, well, it sounds like you need to have a conversation with them about that. And people don't want to do it. They're afraid to do it. And so the more that they have those conversations, the better things get, but it doesn't always feel better, because sometimes what you find out is that person's not a fit for your team. The more clear that you get on all these things, the better things get. But again, it doesn't always feel better because you find out that person actually wasn't a good fit for your team. So the struggle with becoming a better leader is that you get more clear about things, you improve your communication, and then you start asking for consistent performance from your team and have measurements in place and systems in place to do that. And people don't like it, and you find out they're not right for your team. So that's kind of the challenge of leadership, is that when you finally get clear on what you believe, you have to look around and see, do the people that you recruited, do they actually believe what you believe? Do they really want to be on your bus?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that was a huge takeaway for me this past year. So
yeah, you did a lot of hard work on getting clear, and the more clear you got, the harder it was for some people on your team.
Absolutely, yeah, without question.
You're like, oh crap, these are high expectations,
Yeah, definitely.
And they should be high expectations.
Without question.
That's the big struggle for people, is the clearer you get and the more you communicate that, you have to face the reality of who you've surrounded yourself with. And that's not just on your team, but your peers. Like, who are you hanging out with? Who are you spending your time with? Are those really the people that believe what you believe and want to help you move forward? And we were talking before we started recording that the last time we did an interview, my last name was Touchette, and now it's Enriquez because I'm getting a divorce. And that work came from me. I had a really, in some ways, wonderful marriage to a wonderful person, very dedicated, very responsible, really funny, really fun, giving person. And the more I did my work and helping other people get more clear about their vision, their values, their purpose, and helping them make sure their teams were aligned, I had to face the facts that he and I were not aligned. So I didn't have somebody on my team that I fired. I kind of fired my husband, right? Like I dismantled my own home team because it was that important that we be aligned, and realizing that after years and years, because we were high school sweethearts, right? So we just grew up together. We didn't even know what we cared about at the beginning. But once we were locking into what we cared about, it wasn't aligned. And it didn't make one of us good or bad. It just meant that we weren't great together. And I want him to be great, and I want me to be great. And that meant taking the team apart. It meant taking the team apart. And so that clarity is really important, but also that willingness to see that clarity in what you care about, what you believe in, but also that clear vision of looking around you and seeing who's in alignment and who isn't. And I always tell people when they start coaching that you might lose people along the way, and you don't know how big or small those relationships are. I never would have thought that was going to be the relationship that I would lose, but it was the right relationship to lose.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for doing this interview. I don't know if you have any other questions for me. Normally, I'm always asking all the questions. This is my my fifth interview today, so it's nice to be on the other side of it.
I know. So what's the one question I should have asked you that I didn't?
That's
a
great.
Question that you ask.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Now you know how we all feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess what's next? It's the only thing that comes to my mind. Next is honestly right now I'm talking to some expansions. I think for me that might make the most sense at this point. Connecting with a larger expansion that is in line with my vision. With some, they do a lot of training and speaking, and they also do real estate at a really, really high level. And that may be, that's not definitely, I guess, by the time this episode comes out, I guess everybody will know if I went that route or not. And if that doesn't make sense, then you're going to see me, I'm going to hire somebody that I think is really talented, that Margaret helped me out with. And I just haven't pulled the trigger on that yet because I've been exploring with these guys for about 3 weeks now, and it's all looking really good. So I guess what's next is, I'm never going to leave the real estate realm because it's been my gift and my family's gift, and I love real estate. But it depends on what capacity I'll be selling at. Either I'll be with someone else or I'll have my own team.
Well, so now that sparked another question, because what I didn't hear in your what's next answer is anything about your teaching or training. And I know you do a ton of that and you love doing it. So my question for you about that is, what have you learned about teaching and training that you could apply to leadership?
Well, I think, one thing that's helped me become better as a teacher, instructor, is the ability to really just be present with people, I feel. And I think being able to, be the same way, you know, with people as a leader. I mean, really, just be present. Like when I just did an event in New York with 90 plus people, and you know, somebody asked me. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the event in. I think I shared this with you. The event in Portland. Mm-hmm. It was about 40 people, and somebody said, "Well, geez, you know, I don't understand. Like, you come up here and you tell us to do this and tell us to do that, and." Like I get up in the morning, I have people hanging up on me, and you know, it's just, you know, he was just went kind of on like a rant about, you know, how tough it is, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, man. I said, you know what? Here I am standing here, and my whole friggin' team quit a week and a half ago. But yet, you know, I got this event plan. I got to put on my face, and I got to come here and be 100% present, all in, and not one person would have known anything different except the fact that I just told them that. Mm-hmm. So I think that to me is just, no matter what, I got to show up, and I got to show up and be 100%. So I think that goes the same thing with my real estate business. When I'm there, I'm there.
Mm-hmm. You know, you also tapped into a couple other things, was that you were also vulnerable with that group, right? You let them really see where you were really at. And you demonstrated empathy, like, hey, I hear you. I've been where you've been. And so often people just want to hear that. So I think that's a great formula for you to have, is like, be present, demonstrate empathy and vulnerability. And it's amazing the connection that you build with people when you do that. And it's essential as a leader to be present with a person in front of you. It's essential, you know, just as a good human being, to be present with a person in front of you, but especially in leadership, because you're asking so much of them. You know, you're asking them to help you build this big thing, and you're giving them a lot too, but presence is the best thing that you can give them. And then when they're struggling, empathy is the next best thing you can provide. Is like, yeah, I hear you. I've been there. And you don't even have to say anything else. You don't have to solve their problem. You just have to let them know that they're not alone.
Yeah, it's key. I mean, there's so many things going on, and we could be doing this and doing that, and we're rushing to get this done and finish our to-do lists, and you know, just all this stuff. And sometimes I think the best thing to do, I just had this conversation with Jarek before this, and he, you know, we talked about happiness is not like, oh, next week's Christmas, so I'll be happy when I'm opening my gifts, right? It's happiness is right now, being on this call with Elise, and you know what I mean? And having this conversation. This is what it's all about. Yep. And I think somehow we missed that, you know, and I think that's the gift. And the last thing I was going to say on this, and then if you have any other brilliant questions, feel free, is, you know, I was listening to my friend, you know, James Altucher, who I'm going to interview. It's just a matter of time. I'm going to get him.
I can't wait
to
it's
just a matter of time. And I mean, the guy's a machine. But he was interviewing Seth Godin, who was another guy that's like my idol. Like, yes. I'm going to take he's got like the keynote guy. I want his job, like the, you know, $35,000, whatever he gets for keynotes. That to me, that's awesome for an hour's work.
Right.
So he's interviewing Seth, and both of them are like, not Seth so much as James, but James is like, man, you know, life's tough. You know, I'm not sure if I'm at I peaked out a little bit, you know, with my podcast. You know, I'm just listening to this. The guy's like an idol, like my idol. You know what I mean? And then to hear Seth say, you know, I think I'm paraphrasing, but essentially, like, you know what? Listen, buddy, it's like, you know, my failures are what made me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. The reason I am successful as I am is because of how many times I failed, and I just haven't given up.
Yep.
And it was just so cool to hear that, and it was just exactly just like what I needed to hear at the perfect time. And it's just like, that's right, that's life, you know. It's sometimes it's two steps forward, one step back, and that's really what it's all about, you know. So I appreciate this interview and you know, doing this with me. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was fun to, like, we did a little mix of you interview me, and and hopefully people got something out of it. It was powerful for me. So thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I appreciate it. Good job.
Thank you.
If you're anything like me and you love podcasts, I guarantee you're going to love audiobooks. And audible.com is the largest resource of audiobooks. I'm super excited about my partnership with audible.com, where I can offer you a free audiobook. All you have to do is simply go to www.davidsfreebook.com and sign up, and you get yourself a free book. Yes, absolutely free, never charged, no membership. If you love the service, then obviously continue using it, but this is completely free. Again, www.davidsfreebook.com. davidsfreebook.com. Get yourself a free audiobook and enjoy.
You are listening to One More Sale with your host, David I. Hill, author of the Sales Playbook. Get your copy at www.thesalesplaybook.net.